Hi, Les from Retired and Living the Dream. Today is another car washing video. So it's going to be another long one. And today I'm going to talk about retirement, broken bitten and retirement. So let's give it a go. Okay, retirement. At what age do you start thinking of retirement? Now for me, I've been retired for 15 years. 15 years this month to be precise. I was lucky I could retire at 50 years old, and that's when I did retire at 50 years old, as opposed to nowadays it's sort of 67, 68 perhaps before you can start to even think about retiring. I was lucky in the job that I had that I was able to retire at 50 years old, so I grasped it with both hands to retire at the age of 50. Now, when did I actually start thinking about retiring? Because we all go through our life, don't we, thinking I haven't got enough money to pay the bills, and you know, every month 20, 30, 40 year old you have kids, houses and things like that. And then the only time that I really give it a serious thought is when I was 42 year old. That's when I really considered retirement, because I only had 8 years left to do before I got to 50 year old and to being retired. Well, having the ability to be able to retire, either carry on working or have the opportunity to retire. Now, at 42 year old, I went through a horrendous divorce and it cost me a fortune, an absolute fortune. So I had the house, I worked hard, we had 3 houses altogether, I was working 3, sometimes 4 jobs. So my wife could stay at home looking after the kids. And that decision to do that, I was a very, very hard-working man, good provider of the kids and things like that. And one thing and another. But my wife decided she wanted a divorce, and the sort of proverbial brown stuff hit the fan. And out of all the hard work that I did, it was for nothing, because I ended up losing an awful lot. Everything that I'd worked for, provided for the kids and my wife, yeah, all gone because of divorce. So then, whilst I was going through the divorce, my total and utter thoughts were, keep hold of my pension. I don't want my wife or my ex-wife to take any part of my pension. Because unbeknownst to me, again, this is how silly and naive people are, is that my wife didn't want to work. So because my wife didn't want to work, she wanted to be at home looking at the kids. And I liked that idea, because it meant my dinner was on the table, the house was nice and clean, and she did keep a good, clean house, and she was very, very a housewife, if you like, a proper housewife. So I didn't mind working all the jobs that and all the hours that God sent to be able to afford the luxury of my wife being able to stay at home, look after the kids. But now comes the catch when you get divorced. Because my wife for several years wasn't contributing to her national insurance, it means she didn't build up a pension pot. Just get my cloth. And because she hadn't built up a pension pot, that got took into the arrangement for the divorce, is the fact that because she stopped at home, she never contributed towards a pension. So therefore that comes into the calculations as well, doesn't it? So we're talking with a solicitor, and the solicitors are crooks with certificates. I hate solicitors. I've done a couple of videos on solicitors as well, that they are the crooks and you are the cash cow, and they will milk you for every penny that you can get. So for those people who are going to go through a divorce, you know, think very carefully, listen to, they make the money on you arguing, and they make a lot of money through you arguing, believe you me. So oh yeah, so getting back to my pension. So 42 year old, I had 8 years before I could potentially retire. So therefore, you know, we were buying a house, and again the other thing that comes into it, I put £28,000 down on the house as a deposit before we actually got married, and then come the divorce, that has become a marital asset. So therefore it doesn't matter that I put the £28,000 down now, because it becomes a marital asset. And my wife, when I met her, she had 2 suitcases full of clothes, living in a shared house, living in a rented room in a shared house. So she had nothing to contribute, but she was a lovely girl whilst we're married, and I won't take that from her. But sadly, the relationship crumbled and we fell apart, type thing. And I can go on and on and on about that, but it wasn't a very nice divorce, and consequently now I don't see the kids because she turned the kids against me. She's really turned into a nasty piece of work, and so did my kids, unfortunately, because they've gone against me as well, and I've not seen them for a number of years, but the door's always open. But I digress, thinking about retirement. And majority of guys that are 50-ish, if you have a look at the statistics, 50 to 60 is the peak time of divorces. So have you got a recovery plan? If the brown stuff hits the fan, can you recover from it? Or have you got the backup plan? Because financially, wow, can it hit you? And it does hit you. And the statistics is that 50% of marriages end up in divorce, but 80% of the divorces are initiated by women. So guys, you probably haven't got a hope in hell, you know, to counteract it. If they want the divorce, no matter what, they'll get divorced, and you will end up paying for it. So therefore, retirement is covered in it's like a minefield, really, isn't it? Sadly, I got divorced, and I never got married to thinking I was going to get divorced. But I paid the price for being a nice guy, and I lost the house, and I traded the house off for being able to retire at the age of 50. And she doesn't touch my pension, and you know, when we got divorced, she said, "I thought you had a good lawyer until I got everything." And these were her final words to me. And my final words to her was that you might have won the battle, but you haven't won the war. I've been retired now for 15 years, travelled the world, had a good retirement, and my ex-wife is still working. She's got another 4 years to do before she can retire. So who won? It's not a game as to who won. I don't want to, I've no axe to grind against her. She did what she did for whatever reason she did. I'm not bitter, I'm not angry, I don't carry the bitterness inside me. I just get on with it. And I did say to her, I hope you find somebody that makes you happy. And life's too short to be bitter and angry and carry, because it just eats you up inside. You've got to get over it and move on. You know, lots of things come and affect your life and your retirement. Illness, health, family. There are many things that go affect you along your way for retirement. So what I'm talking about here is the good old days. Do you remember the good old days? 90s and 80s and 90s. And you know, people always go on about the 80s and 90s, and I can remember that. I grew up in a poor neighbourhood. I lived in a street house. My mum and dad worked. My dad worked in the steelworks. My mum worked night shifts on a bakery. We grew up in South Bank, and our improvement in life was we moved to a council house in Redcar. You know, Redcar was a nicer area than in South Bank where we lived. So we come up in the world, moving into a council house. And I just went to a normal school, didn't go to college. But I've worked all of my life, well, up until I was 50. And if I lost my job, I walked into another one. I got made redundant at a joinery firm. Within a week, I got another job. We were on strike with the steelworks, and that's when I joined the fire brigade, and I've never looked back from then. But the 80s and 90s, you know, people of my age will remember that. And the average salary was £6,000 a year, the average salary. And we sort of lived a goodish life on that amount of money. But now, you know, the average wage is 30-odd thousand, and the house prices have gone up over 1,100% from the 1980s. The average price of a house now is 290,000. The average price of a house in the 80s was about £22,000. So the house prices have gone up 1,170, and salaries from 80s to 2023 has gone up by 390%. So there's a huge difference in the spending power. I remember in my 20s, they were offering mortgages at 105% of the house price, so you could pay your solicitor's bills. And now, they won't even look at you unless you've got at least 10% to put down on a house. It used to be 4.5 times your annual salary that they'd lend you for a mortgage. You know, and if the average wage is £30,000 a year now, 4.5 times that, 120, about 130, 140,000 pounds. So again, that's gone up. Your borrowing just means that everybody has to pay more and get less out of life. Now for me, where I live, my retirement, I'm sort of living on the 80s and 90s money, because all I get, I'm 65 on next week, so then I get my state pension, so then I'll be on over £2,000 a month with my pension and my state pension. But at the minute we're on £1,500 a month, and we live on £1,500 a month, and I have a fantastic lifestyle on that. So retirement, for those people who are facing retirement and like just on a state pension or a little bit of savings, go and have a look elsewhere around the world to see what better value you get out of the amount of money that you got to live on. Sometimes it's worth making the move to make that difference, to make your day-to-day living a much happier affair. Because at the end of the day, I could not live, well, I could just as say manage on £2,000, just say I get my state pension. I could just about live on £2,000 a month, but it wouldn't be a very good life. But here where I live in Thailand, £2,000 a month gives me a super duper lifestyle, and long may it last. So for those people who are thinking about retiring and saying they can't afford to retire, they're going to have to work until they die, is it worth looking outside of the box and thinking to yourself, could I have a better life in a different country? I know there's all sorts of things to look at, healthcare, family, friends, children, grandchildren, but ultimately it's your happiness, isn't it, that we're talking about. It's your happiness. It's your happiness that you have to worry about for the rest of your life, because at the age of 60 odd, you've lived 2/3 of your life. You've lived 80 odd percent of your life before you retire. The average UK person lives till the age of 78 to 80 years old. So if you're only retiring 67, 68, then you know, you've only got a few years left. So it's what you do with them last few years that makes life worthwhile, doesn't it? All of that hard work, you've worked all of your life for your retirement. So my advice is, look into your retirement. If you've got a few years to go, make a plan about it, what you're going to do. Look elsewhere, go on holidays. You know, in your holiday period, have a look what it'd be like to live in another country compared to the UK, because when all said and done, it's not just the wealthy people who are leaving the UK. Poorer people are leaving the UK also. So that's it. That's my ramble today. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. And until the next video, bye for now.